Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening around the world, wherever you are. Thank you so much for taking the 1 hour out of your time. It's going to be well worth it, because if you're interested in franchising, if you are a franchise, if you're thinking about investing in a franchise, anything around franchising, we've got 4 experts today that'll be able to help you with additional information, with the latest information, and also as a follow-up as you go along. My name is Doug Brunke. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Chamber, and I'm very honored to have these 4 experts today. We're going to start with Andrew Jonelis. He's the franchise director at Health Optimizing, and he's senior partner and country director at Francorp Baltic. He's calling in, zooming in today from Lithuania. And Andrew, thank you so much for kicking us off today.
Thank you for inviting me. Hi, everyone. Should I start?
Please do. I think we'll get your, whenever you're ready.
Okay. So maybe first of all, I will introduce myself. I work in a franchise industry for several years, 6, 7 years. So my knowledge comes from 2 directions. First of all, I own a franchise consulting company, and we were working on developing various brands, like franchise system for brands. And later on, one of the companies that we developed, I joined the company. I became a shareholder, which is Health Optimizing. So I dived deep into, we developed a franchise system and then give it away to the client. So good luck on developing a franchise system as we draw the plan for you. But now I'm on a other part of the game of the business, and I'm executing what we develop, and I find great joy and great interest in doing that. So I'm in 2 positions, as a franchise consultant and as a franchisor as well. So maybe my experience and what I want to share with you is maybe about the franchise health optimizing concept. Basically, it's health optimizing is the world's leading high-tech medicine concept, which is transforming the future of medicine. And this concept has been developed by a Norwegian, Thomas Aksnes, supported by scientists from all around the world. So this business is utilizing, Health Optimizing is utilizing more than 30 technologies in the clinic sized about 350 square meters. So it's a network of private clinics where we address the causative factors with specific lifestyle coaching and apply high-tech medical devices to stimulate the intrinsic self-regulating mechanisms. By doing that, we help our clients' own bodies to solve most health challenges quickly and effectively. We call this process self-healing body. So, and we operate in most of the, not most, but in all continents in the world. So it's an interesting experience to deal with businessmen from India, from South Africa, from London, Norway, Sweden, and so on. So, yeah, so this is in short about the business, what we do. And Doug, when you asked me to do a very short presentation, so I was thinking about some maybe do's and don'ts, maybe about some tips for the new franchisors, I guess. So if I may, so a couple of maybe advices in the beginning is about do's. So when we develop a franchise, I think it's from our experience. It's very, very important to develop a comprehensive sales process and openly communicate it with your prospects. I mean, it's very, very highly recommended to set up some, for instance, 3 months fixed sales process and communicate it to your prospects. So that you can, ask them, are you ready to start the franchise process, because sometimes it extends significantly. You know, you can talk and negotiate for 6 months and 12 months, and you never know, you sign up for that franchise, and it's very time consuming. But when you fix it, okay, there's a clear process for 3 months. First, we do this, we do that, we provide this, blah, 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 blah. So it's very, very efficiently. And they say, oh yeah, I'm now working on some project and I can join you for that 3 months period and I don't know, next quarter or so. Yeah, so it's the first tip that is really, really helpful and will save loads of your precious time. And again, another maybe tip which we implemented in health optimizing franchise concept is signing a simple step as signing LOI, letter of intent. When you have a long cycle of a sales process, or when you have high investment, for instance, our franchise fee for single unit is 100,000 euros plus 500,000 euros and one investment in one clinic, in devices and refurbishment. So sometimes, or more often than not, investors need to get some cash, so they need some time. So we sign LOI. By signing LOI, it's a win-win module. Franchisees are securing their territory, and we know that his intention is like serious, and we get him some time, and we don't bother ourselves to provide all the relevant information and to do due diligence with them for instance, another 3 or even 6 months. Typically, we give almost 6 months for that LOI stage, and we get some, and we charge some fee for signing LOIs, 10 or 20% from the initial fee. So it's 20,000 euros in our case. So when we implemented this, it helped greatly to invest our time and to structure all the sales process. So these are two maybe couple of do's for the franchisors that are in a startup phase, I would say. Do I still have a minute or two?
About 30 seconds.
30 seconds. So maybe I will not start with don'ts, maybe very short don'ts. Don't try selling franchises to your friends and your family. And it's a franchising theory, but it really, really helps. I mean, it's a great advice from our own experience. You need to develop a quite comprehensive prospect profile and to check him before signing. So it's very important. So it maybe sounds like theory, but I could elaborate more on that later on if someone has questions. Thank you.
Fantastic. The great way to kick it off. Love the tips. You know, we had the other night a conversation about business in general, and someone mentioned how as a startup you would reach out for money to friends, families, and fools. And so I think what you just said was not friends and family, but only reach out to fools. That was, I guess, your point, right? But maybe not. Probably not fools, smart people to go after. In your case, a really great franchise. And in general, what you want are people who really know what they're doing, are operationally excellent, are financially stable, and there's a variety of things related to who you're looking for. So really great tips around getting prepared early, the 6 months ahead on the communications, and the LOI is a great idea. Our next speaker is Luis Vidal. He's a founding partner at CaliMex. He, I think, came originally through our Hermosillo chapter, but he goes between the US and Mexico. He's a very global fellow, not just because he travels and does business on both sides of the border, but he has an MBA at Global Management from an MBA in Global Management from Thunderbird School of Global Management. Luis is involved with a franchise called Caliburger, and undoubtedly we'll be hearing a little bit about it. And I think the way they're approaching it, from an operational standpoint, and getting investment for that is unique and different. And we wanted Luis to share more about that. So Luis, thank you so much for your support and collaboration, and looking forward to hearing more.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Doug. And I appreciate the introduction. And thank you, Andrew, for sharing about your experience as well. Let me tell you just a little bit about Cali Burger. Cali Burger is the first better burger, premium California style burger to be launched by an American company outside of the US. It started in 2011, and it started in Asia, in Shanghai. It grew from there, spread in Asia, then it went to the Middle East. And then in 2015, it finally made its way back to the US. So it truly is a global brand. It has a larger presence outside of the US than it does in the US currently. Globally, there's probably about between 40 and 50 units operating right now. And it is in expansion and growth mode. Now, I know we have a very, very brief amount of time here, so I'll kind of blow through this presentation, but I believe it will be made available to anybody that's interested afterwards through Doug and the Global Chamber. But anyway, what Cali Burger offers is a very simple menu. For those familiar with the California style, it's very fresh ingredients, never frozen patties, fresh buns, vegetables. We offer chicken sandwiches, milkshakes, and fries. So the theme is, you know, a burger on the beach in California. We use the California iconography that is recognizable in most parts of the world. And we try to bring that thematic into our restaurants to not only create, you know, to offer premium products, but also offer an experience that our clients, that our clientele can appreciate for sure. All of our products are sourced locally, so that helps the franchisee, the local franchisee, mitigate some costs in terms of importing from the US. So Cali Group, the master franchisor, offers obviously some standard operating procedures and some brand standards that global franchisees have to adhere to. And we are able, because of the simplicity of our products, we are able to source locally in every country that we operate in thus far. Now, in addition to the premium products, the better burgers that we offer, Cali Group as a whole is essentially a restaurant technology corporation. It's a holding company that has 6 different restaurant hospitality themed technology. One of those is called Pop ID, which has developed a facial recognition payment kiosks that is launched in our US stores, and we are diligently working to getting it to our Mexico stores now, Asia and the Middle East coming soon. Now, what that is essentially a kiosk where you as a client would opt into our loyalty program. The kiosk takes a picture of your face, stores your payment, securely stores your payment information. And now every time you visit a store, when you walk up to the kiosk, it recognizes you as a previous client and says, you know, welcome back to our store. It says your name. Would you like to have your previous order this time around? Essentially, you know, with the wave of a hand or a gesture or a touch of the screen, you can have your previous order, and then the food will be brought out to you. So that's something exciting. In addition, as you see in this particular slide on the bottom right, it's the Flippy robot is being debuted in the US as well, soon to be in global markets. But essentially, we took the tedious job of manning a hot, greasy grill, and we assigned automation to it. Now, Flippy consistently cooks a very good hamburger without making any mistakes. And it essentially was born because in markets like Seattle, Los Angeles, New York, where the cost of labor is very high, and this position of manning a grill, there's a high turnover rate. It helps the franchisees' bottom line in terms of not having to hire and retrain employees to man the grill, and consistent products. And also there are some AI components where it detects pathogens as well. So you're consistently getting a premium germ-free hamburger, if you will. Now, in terms of how Cali Burger operates its franchise model, there's obviously infrastructure in the US, but outside of the US, we search for local area experts to partner with. Now, Cali Burger will offer master franchise models, which is what I am involved in Mexico and Latin America. We are the master franchises for the Cali Burger brand in Mexico, all the way down through Central America and down to Argentina and South America. What we look for is local partners where we can sub-franchise local area development deals, multi-unit development deals. And because of Cali Burger's it's relatively still a new brand, we are very flexible and adaptable in terms of the franchise model that we can offer potential franchisee or investor. Some of the things that we do in Mexico and also the Middle East is we can allow a passive investor to essentially buy a unit, and then with our local partnerships, we can operate that unit for a passive investor and return the profits and the revenues to the investor. Obviously, there would be, a small operations charge, but essentially, anybody that would be interested in owning a franchise passively can do that with Cali Burger in certain parts of the world. A couple of do's and don'ts that we've learned through our experience. It's key to have strong local partnerships to be able to navigate the local business infrastructure and also impart expert market knowledge, because obviously, the brand is growing into new markets. We don't have that expertise in certain areas yet, but through strong partnerships, we are able to attain that. It's also very important to be adaptable and flexible in terms of local markets, local tastes, palates. So while Cali Burger does offer a standardized menu, we are flexible in terms of localization of flavors in order to better serve the local market and local tastes. So those are two keys that we have found indispensable in terms of our growth. And with that, I know that we've gone my 7 minutes, so I'll take some questions at the end. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it, Luis. Thank you very much. And the whole idea of flippy is an interesting one. That's really cool. Our next speaker is Chuck Kim. He's the COO at Executive Digital. He's operated digital fulfillment teams for over 10 years for Fortune 500 corporations. And one of the reasons why we brought in Chuck today is that his team have some tremendous franchise experience. And what's really cool about what they do is be able to reach customers faster, so more on that side of things. And so we're really looking forward, Chuck, to hearing more from you and not just your experience, but how you can help. Thank you very much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me here, Doug. And I was really excited about this topic because me and my team, we've been pretty actively involved with the International Franchise Association for the last year and a half, and then the International Franchise Professionals Group, IFPG, in the franchise space. And so a quick background about Executive Digital. I can control this, right? How do I move the slide?
Oh,
there we go.
Cesar's got it.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, a quick background about Executive Digital is we have over 8 offices around the world. We just opened up Oslo, Norway. My business partner has been doing SEO for since the mid-90s, and then I've been doing digital marketing SEO for over 13 years. And so a big thing that we've focused on and really have harped on is helping out multi-location brands along with franchises on how to really scale their efforts here in the US, along with international efforts as well, because the dynamics with growing your brand presence and brand awareness is quite different in Europe or in Asia versus the US. And so what we do is we help educate business owners with navigating those waters of how do you build your brand properly in the digital marketing space without having to duplicate your efforts or overspend in certain arenas. You go to the next slide, Cesar. Awesome. Thanks. We're partners across the board, big commerce partners, Shopify partners, We do a lot of WordPress, WooCommerce websites. I'm a Forbes Agency Council member. My business partner, Alex, and then Tony. And then we have over 120 employees that manage everything from SEO, web dev, social media, digital ads, and we have a very large presence in Novi Sad, Serbia, where we have corporation executive digital DOO. So you'll see a lot of our full-time managers on this slide as well. Again, like a big thing with us when it comes to our team members and our employees is we cross-train everyone about like what impacts SEO from a web dev standpoint, or how does SEO impact your digital ads and performance and everything, because it is one true digital marketing ecosystem that we build around a brand, especially in the franchise industry. Some other things that you can go to the next slide as well, Stiffer. Some other things that we really focus on when it comes to building up a brand is really that foundational element of how is your website built? Is it built and ready for an SEO campaign? And what I mean for those who are listening or watching, what I mean by SEO is getting found on Google in both Google Maps and the organic space where it doesn't say ads or promotions or whatnot. And the big reason for that is because the vast majority of clicks that happen during search results, during searches that are being done on Google, the vast majority of clicks are actually conducted in the organic space. And again, that's Google Maps and organic. Whereas 2-3% of clicks happen in the ad space. So some things to think about when you're building out your website and the foundation of your brand, especially overseas in like Europe, GDPR rules. You want to make sure that your URL structures are done properly. So that way, if you're expanding between Europe to Asia to US, again, you're not duplicating your efforts, and that the overall structure of the website is built primed. So that way Google understands that you exist in all these different locations. And then again, like our team, it's our job to educate the marketing directors, the marketing department, and the owners of the franchisors and franchisees on why we're doing and setting up your website in certain manners. Let me go to the next one. Cool. On-site optimization. This is all about how Google reads your website, and then what we do is we target various keywords and making sure that the overall user experience is a very high user experience. So it's really important at the end of the day for Google to understand your website and what you want to be found for, whether it's a hamburger restaurant or it's a physician restaurant, or if it's a physician office in Europe or Asia or in California or whatever it may be. We want to make sure that you pop up under search results on a frequent basis, so that way it builds up your brand, the trust within your brand, and then the awareness of your brand. So that way people are more inclined to visit your store or office and give you guys an opportunity to win over their business. Organic SEO is important. I didn't want to go through all these slides because obviously there's a limited time period, but we'll kind of stop at this slide. A big thing again with us is coordinating out everything from how Google reads your website to your presence on social media and in different ad mediums, to where your brand signals are maximized, and that people become really aware of your brand and understand who you are. The other things to be aware of, like when you're building out franchises, is and you're teaching franchisees how to grow their business, is understanding what it takes from a monetary standpoint to grow that brand as a franchisee. And that's where we really come in play with helping you almost project out what a starting marketing budget is for your franchisees to get from being non-existent to being omnipresent across multiple channels. And again, Cesar, you don't need to go through all the slides. I can send this out afterwards. This is really our pitch ticket bar of our services. And so, you know, in the U.S., they have the FDDs and so forth. And when you're stating out what their appropriate marketing budget is that's where we really come and play and help franchisors say, hey, as a franchisee, you should probably expect to spend X amount of dollars on a monthly basis or annual basis to achieve pretty good results, and then you can amplify it from there. The other thing and resources that we have, some things to think about as a new franchisor, is building relationships with as many franchise consultants as possible, because they come across so many different investors that were, investors who are looking for good franchises to invest into. They come across a multitude of people. So like, if they understand your brand and like your brand, you're definitely going to become a franchise brand that they want to be able to pitch to any of one of their clients. And then you also have franchise lead development systems, like my buddy Alfonso at Franchise Help, who generate leads and so forth. My team creates organic leads. So if individuals are looking for restaurant franchises or medical franchises, you get found organically, and then people end up calling you or submitting the form to inquire more about your brand from there. And then we have a ton of resources. Like, you guys feel free to reach out to me. But a lot of friends of mine, like Bambi HR, they do human resource management for scalable franchises. And then you have like background screening companies and so forth, financing opportunities, this whole ecosystem. And I highly recommend, like, if you guys are looking to get into the franchise space, to delve into IFA and IFPG, go to the franchise expos and franchise shows that are happening. I know when we were in Orlando, was it last month or earlier this month, at their big international conference, a big emphasis is international franchising and how much it's really booming and exploding. So if you're looking and interested in investing into an international franchise, I think the time is right now, because there's a huge enthusiasm, especially in Southeast Asia and Europe, for it. And I'll answer any questions at the end.
Fantastic. We have actually a question about that topic. So keep your questions coming in. Two ways to do it: either in the system there, or send a question to info@globalchamber.org, and we're monitoring those here. And so our next and last speaker is Maimun or Rashid Mustafa. He's the CEO at Amzo Global Enterprises. He's also, fortunately for us, the executive director of Global Chamber Barisal, which is a region outside of Dhaka, Bangladesh. I think today is calling in from Bangladesh. Works around the world. He works in particular in the US and India and Pakistan, Malaysia, Bangladesh are some of the key countries where he has worked. He's also very, very involved through his family and through other aspects in the franchise industry. And so we've asked Maimun to come in and say a few words about and tips around franchising from his perspective, especially since franchising is expanding dramatically in Asia. Maimun, thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Doug. And firstly, a very big thank you to my other colleagues, Andrew, Luis, and Charles, for giving a very good picture of what's happening around the world of franchising. So I think this brief introduction is due firstly of Amzo Global Enterprises, which is our family brand of the conglomerate that we are part of. We're involved in agro, we're involved in technology, digital marketing activations. I think relevant to this topic, we have three of our brands: the Guy and Gallard series of restaurants, which is a catering brand; BIB, which has been the #1 burger brand in New York, Black Iron Burger, as rated by TripAdvisor since 2016; and my own company, MCFG, Momentum Consultancy and Facilitation Group, which basically, as we say, as our elevator pitch is, we simplify the business solution delivery process. So we're facilitators and consultants of getting you connected with any businesses that you might want in the APEC or ASEAN region, especially with Westerners in that context. So I'll get into today's topic full on. First of all, I don't have a PowerPoint, but I'm going to make one with the points I'm going to elaborate today, and hopefully it'll be made available to everyone here today. So the question I'd like to pose is taking something from Shakespeare: to franchise or not to franchise? And that is the question. I think that's the first thing that you got to ask yourself. Just because there's good franchising opportunity doesn't mean that you should go and franchise out there. There are other models like licensing, and even you might want to go there yourself if you have a good local partner. So I'll highlight three main topics. First of all, I'll tell what it is that you need to know about the franchise, and this is what we tell to our clients. Then we tell you about how you'd want to roll out, and of course, finally, the contract, the agreement, how you should go about it. So firstly, and within these 7 minutes, in true debater's fashion, I'll try to simplify all of these for first. So do you know the good or service? That's what you got to ask yourself, and it's the same, I think, for all businesses. Just because you've been good in one business doesn't mean that you'll be good in a franchise. Say it's a burger brand, and that's exactly what we faced in for one of the top burger brands of the world when they came over here, and they partnered with another brand that had a license of another global brand, but that was in construction, and they failed. They failed miserably because there was one term that is after every 6 months they had to have 5 new outlets. Now, if you price a premium product that is outside the average consumer's hands, that is something to be worried about. So again, know the good or service, know if it works in your country. McWorld may work, but you have to localize McWorld for your local industry and your local consumers. So that leads me to my second question. What is the local cultural attraction towards the brand? Do you again know your market? Do you have to customize things for your market? Like in India likes mixing and intertwining, Western terms and Indian terms, like Youngistan. It's Hindustan playing with the word young. So they like you're doing this integration, and a lot of their business models are as such. So you need to know that market too. And again, we come to that core idea. Do you have a good local partner? That good local partner is quintessential. You have to carry out then due diligence. Vet the franchisee if you are going to be a franchisor, and you have to vet the franchisor if you are a franchisee. KYC and KYCC. You not only have to know your customer, you got to know your customer's customer through this as well. Are the local people who are going to support him? Is everything he's saying right? We have a lot of information, but sometimes finding the right information is very difficult. So before you want to expand, because your brand is very, very important, understand if your brand can survive without basically mingling. I would suggest everyone to watch the movie The Founder that focuses on the McDonald's founder's life story. There's a lot to teach from there. There's a lot of dramatics. There's a lot to learn from there as well. So furthermore, taste for unique nation. What do the unique nations want in terms of a global product? Think about the contemporary issues. Think about coronavirus. Think about, if there's something happening in the US and some other nation. Will people react badly to that? Would someone in China act nicely to a US brand? Always things to always think about. Pricing, quintessential for those markets. Just because you can charge something $10 in the US, it may or may not be the right thing to charge it as a premium product somewhere else. You want to make it FMCG. You want to make it mass retail. So again, research is important. Marketing plans, you got to put all of the things that I think Kim told in his presentation, and finding technology. Just because there's a good technology that's available doesn't mean that you should always be able to equip it. But then again, for example, we hope that we can bring in Cali Burger to New York City and Bangkok. And I've been talking with Luis. We love playing around with the idea of Flippy and facial recognition payments. But then again, we got to think. When Luis told me, okay, Maimun, where do you want us to go? I said, not Bangladesh. It's my home country, but I got to be a businessman first. You have to think Thailand, big market. You have to think New York, again, the right market. Then beware of bypasses. We've had a bad experience of even going to one of the top franchise, connecting organizations in South Asia, who, even though I approached him, he bypassed me and went to our manager in New York City. These are things that you got to think about. These business ethics matter. We had to black market. Basically black market. NDAs, these again need to be respected. Now, when do you want to roll out? 5 main points. Landlord and real estate relationships. These are very, very important. What benefits is this franchise offering that you don't have already? Because if you already have these, I think you should go on the business on your own. Your overheads will be much less. But if you have a franchise, they will give you a lot of good benefits. Are those good benefits, overweighing the finance and the cost that's going to be involved? I think my previous speakers already told about this. Then regional master franchises, again, see the terms and conditions, very, very important. And there has to be the need for a business case, or else maybe we can't even help you if you haven't established one franchise out of your core area of operations. The contract, find the right partner, find the right franchise for you. What is the best fit for you? You got to have trust. If you don't have it, please don't go into that business. Think about the initial investment. Is it enough? Is the full invest going to be enough? Do you have the money to bankroll? Negotiate the contract and find out the risk and return trade-off. How many outlets do you want to expand? The split of the revenue and the room for breathing space that you'll need to incubate this and come to your ROI or even your break-even. And finally, choose the course right. Just because you're going into another country, don't think the US laws will always apply there. You got to respect the laws of both nations. And of course, no one wants to go to court first. You always want to have a good business and good brand. In 7 minutes, I hope I've been able to cover as much as possible. I'll be open to questions if anyone has.
Really appreciate that, Maimun, and appreciate all of you, because 7 minutes is not a lot of time to cover these topics. So the real purpose of today was to pull out some key pieces of information and then give our audience an opportunity to follow up with you individually, but hopefully ask a few questions here along the way as well. So one of the first question is related to something that a couple of you touched on, relating to international franchising. Could all of you have kind of your hands on a global view of franchising? Could you, either each of you could just give a quick summary of what's happening in the franchise world right now globally? It felt like maybe 10 or 20 years ago that it felt mostly US, Europe, even a little bit centric, and now it's everywhere. And Maimun, your comment about, you're sitting there in Bangladesh and thinking about franchising, and you're already franchising in New York, but so what does the franchise world look like today? Where are the hot markets, and where is it going?
Well, it's an interesting topic that you talk about. I've talked with the people who have held the Nando's Bangladesh franchise, and they also held Nando's Sri Lanka, and now he's in the management of Secret Recipe. They're looking more towards ASEAN-based franchises, which do kind of market that they have a McWorld feel, because they're more malleable. So the thing that everyone is looking for right now is that the more customizable the franchise is, one example is, of course, Luis being over here, that Nando's has an international rule that you have to be on the ground floor. So the more rigid you make it, the more difficult it is. If you can customize menus, if you can customize the prices, customize sourcing, I think that's what new franchisees are looking for.
Okay, interesting idea, because that used to be, no level of customizing, right? The McDonald's study is, right, the food may not be the best, but it's standard. It's always the same. And so you're saying customizable might be the way to get into some of these countries. Luis, what are you saying relative to that? Because you've got one foot in the US largely, which is kind of more old school, and you've got Mexico, which felt like 10 years ago there was not much happening, and now obviously a very hot market. How do you see this topic? Where's the growth and where are the opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. Those are good points. And yeah, to kind of piggyback off of what Maimun was saying, for us, it was very important to localize, because obviously it's geographically Mexico is very close to the US, but culturally we're different. So for us, it was very important to localize our palate, if you will. What I see happening, and not only in Mexico, but the rest of Latin America, is the franchise model is exploding. Whereas, as you mentioned, 10 years, 25 years ago, there weren't very many companies outside of global brands, the McDonald's and, some car dealerships and whatnot, some global recognizable brands that were only the ones that were doing the franchising. But now there's another trend happening where local companies, Mexican companies, Costa Rican companies, they have an established brand locally, and they're expanding to other parts of the world in some cases. For example, in our partner's case, they're expanding from Mexico into the US with their franchise model as well. So I find that, very interesting, and I welcome that both in the US and in Latin America.
The natural evolution, right? That's awesome as things develop. Chuck, you were the one that started this conversation by mentioning the International Franchise Show, and I actually helped start a franchise years ago. And when I went to the IFA, this was probably 10, 15 years ago, very little conversation about international. And you brought up the fact that now there's a lot going on there international. So what's your perspective on this? Where do you see the action?
Yeah, so my conversations with pretty big franchise consultants, and then a big emphasis at IFA was about the growth of franchising internationally. I think Luis and Andrew hit it right on the head of there's an enthusiasm to bring in a system in place that already exists and is successful in the US, where it's really a copy-paste system. everything is there. And their investors are really looking at this opportunity of like, wow, there's already enthusiasm over these brands. Why not just bring it into new regions and where there really aren't a whole lot of franchises in place where they can duplicate the system and make just as much. And so, yeah, I mean, the conversation I've had with a lot of consultants is that like a lot of investors are looking at that space because it's not as, I don't know if saturated is the right word, but as competitive as the US market.
That makes sense. So Andrew, you've obviously got a great view of Europe, and you've, through your work, also have a view beyond that. Tell us a little bit about what you see, what's going on, what's hot.
You see, our concept is quite, we have our blue oceans. So, so it's someone who is seeking for non-conventional medicine type of franchise. So we are we have our uniqueness. So it's, for us, it's easy to expand globally, and we expanded globally without any marketing. Basically, it's word of mouth effect and so on. It's in the beginning, but what I see interesting in franchising industry from the consultant company point of view, that it's not necessary have to be some company working 5-10 years, multi-units, and then starting to franchise. Even startups come and ask to develop a franchise system for them because there is demand in the market. People see, they ask, oh, please give me your franchise. And then those companies, startup level companies, comes to franchise consultant companies as we are, and to us to develop a franchise. I said, why? You are so young, there is no experience in what you do. But said there is a demand. So the franchises grow with the franchisees. So like this is what I saw interesting in the market. And the second part that is businesses are start to franchise, not just, you know, like burger chains or something that is, but, you know, we franchise some online, for instance, online car auctions portal. We franchise that one. And some very interesting concept, which originally you don't think as might be franchised. So this is what I see interesting in the market.
Okay, what do you see on a macro level in Europe? You've got kind of the more developed countries, and then you're involved, I think, largely in the Baltic region. So in terms of, you know, are those more developing regions have a different flavor of franchise that they're looking at today? And flavor, no pun intended, because you mentioned about food and then these other things, including health, that you're involved with. You know, what is there a fair uniformity of expansion of franchising within the region of Europe, or do you see trends based on different elements by different country?
I don't know. It's quite difficult for me to elaborate more on this. I wouldn't say, because we are started in Europe, but we operate in South Africa and Philippines and Australia and so on. So it's not mainly Europe. So I couldn't go deep to answer your question. Sorry.
Okay, and you're talking about health optimizing, and that's another type of area, right? In terms of healthcare and taking and so that's, I think, more to the example that several of you have mentioned about that there's a diversity now of franchising. It used to be hamburgers, and now it's way beyond hamburgers. In fact, it's on the opposite of hamburger, right? It's actually healthy, which is kind of cool.
Yes.
So what was it about the health optimizing of a franchise that attracted you, and what are you seeing in terms of its value proposition and how easy or difficult it is to go into different markets?
You see, it was I'm sharing myself the values of the company. I mean, I enjoy healthy lifestyle and being fit and so on, and gluten-free and vegan and these things. So I was sharing myself those values. And when you have this type of values, so you get involved in the business. So it's all my team, all my prospects and franchisees. I mean, we can talk about, meditation, some intermittent fasting, eating healthy food. So it's okay that I cannot reach someone that some person is out for some, some meditation retreat and so on. So it's everything like connected. So I really enjoy that being a part when my lifestyle goes into the business. So, and I meet like-minded people, etc.
Got it. So there's two people, both Maimun and Luis are involved with food franchises, and both of them involve meat, and which says, I think certainly the meat industry is growing, continues to grow. What's going to be key, though, probably for each of you involved with franchises that you're both part of, is the customization that you talked about earlier, right? That the market is changing, right? So how are market changes impacting both of the franchises that each of you are involved with? Luis, you talk a little bit about CaliBurger, and my own experience with it is that there also is a healthy angle to how it's marketed and some of the food on the menu as well. And so part of that must be, maybe it's customized, or maybe it's evolving. I'm not sure. How is that evolving?
Well, yes, that's very true. We do offer, I mean, we market ourselves as, obviously we can't market ourselves as health food, but we do highlight the freshness of our ingredients, the simplicity of our menu, no real processed foods. I mean, it's just basically ground up beef and chicken. Other than that, it's just vegetables and a healthy bun as well. With these simple ingredients, there's a specific spec that CaliBurger imparts a specific recipe that calls for a minimum amount of ingredients, and we market that very as much as we can, because we do want to differentiate ourselves in our case from the McDonald's and the Burger Kings or the typical fast food. We market ourselves as a fast casual because we don't store any pre-made food. Everything's made to order at the time of order. And it depends on the market too. For example, that is of more importance in the US than it is in Mexico, for example, at this point. Whether that's the case in 5 years from now, well, the good thing is we'll be adaptable and flexible and be able to adjust and address those concerns when they do arise or get out in front of them.
Got it. Yeah, I read the last place I ate in Hermosillo was like a meat emporium. It was like every kind of meat and spectacular, and it was amazing. It was great. But you're right. It's probably it may be coming. The next question we have is maybe one that maybe each of you have seen. What's either a good or a bad example of franchising that each of you have seen? And so pick a good one or pick a bad one, and then why did they either succeed or fail? Anybody want to start with that one? Chuck, you've seen like a million of them, right? You've seen like good things, bad things.
Yeah,
things
Doug, I mean, yeah, don't put us on the spot. I'm not going to call out a brand, but the biggest reason why we see like some franchises, especially here in the U.S. or franchises from overseas that want to enter into the U.S. market, not succeed is because the marketing strategies between international and U.S. is quite different in terms of how you grow your brand awareness. And so the ones where I see struggle are the ones who they don't have the brand awareness or brand impression in both Google or in all different types of vertical marketing strategies. And so like they really fail from that foundational element of their website just isn't built properly. They're not doing SEO right. And then their ad accounts from the franchisor overall brand level campaigns down to the franchisee campaigns are just being mismanaged. And when you don't have marketing working with you and for you, then it becomes you really are starting to swim against the current, and that becomes a tough situation for everyone.
Got it. Anybody else want to weigh in? You don't need to mention the specific brand, but if you'd like to, that's all well and good.
I think I could add a case without a name to that. The problem with the burger, as I was talking to you about, understanding the local culture and local taste, right? So you have to tweak it, no matter, everyone knows about the standardization of the McDonald's burger, right? You know that there's basic trust that it's going to be a standard burger, but you won't find the same burger or the same Whopper, whether it's in Tokyo, whether it's in Bangladesh, or whether it's the same Nando's. Now, what happened with this brand? It was a burger brand. They did two main problems. One, first, they brought in exactly the American taste. Americans, I think they like a little bit less salt than we like salt over here, and the spice level also got another issue. So that was issue number one. So now you have a completely different burger that the locals aren't accustomed to, and then you're charging American prices. People are not going to pay $10 for a burger that doesn't suit their taste. So they were actually charging $10. So I can just say they really, really failed. And they're one of the top burgers in the world.
Fantastic. Okay, so again, goes back to customizing, right, for local tastes. Bring a good concept and then tweak it. Andrew, I'm sure that's, well, with health optimizing, you've got a little bit of a clean slate, right? You've got like really no standard necessarily to follow. You've created a lot of the uniqueness of that franchise.
Yes, that's right, because it started with licensing. When we came to the picture, we just grew company from licensing level to the franchising level, and we're still implementing and developing throughout franchise. About the maybe experience, what we experienced, maybe the tip, we are going through master franchising as well as the quickest way to expand globally. And we faced up some, I would say, problems on that free FFA level, friends, family, and all of them. And when our master franchisees, because we asked master franchisees to open first showcase clinic in the country, and then starting from a second year on to saturate the market with sub-franchising. And we faced up a situation when we choose not the right partner, and then which is the manager of a clinic. So it's difficult to be to wear free caps at one time, to be a manager of a clinic, to be a master franchisor in developing a country, and even being a medical doctor in that clinic as well. So we faced up some really we signed up an agreement with enthusiasts, and we ended up having a few years not developing a country, just being a manager of a clinic and trying to hold all the parts of the business, and it didn't go well. So this is maybe from our experience.
Got it. That makes sense. Luis, other than Cali Burger, which is obviously an amazing success, are there other brands on the positive or negative side that you've seen that are good examples or bad examples?
Kind of in the same regard as my colleagues. I don't want to, knock any particular brands, but what I've seen in our experiences, at least, is sub-franchisees sort of not adhering or trying to make changes to a proven franchise model can present certain challenges. Obviously, it's a partnership, it's a dance between franchisor and franchisee, and the franchisor usually has a proven system in place that imparts, knowledge, standard operating procedures, brand identity to the franchisee. The franchisee can come in with experience of their own and think, potentially they can do it better or differently. And that's really not the spirit of the franchise model. It's to work together, and us as a franchisor, obviously, if one of our sub franchisees comes and, negotiates or sort of works out a better way to do things, we're completely open to it. But it's when a sub-franchisee takes it upon themselves to make certain changes in the product offering, in the service offering, whatever that case may be, that's where challenges can start to arise in the franchise model.
Okay, got it. So we've only got about 4 minutes left, and one of the remaining questions, and we'll get to the rest of them on a blog post that we'll post afterwards, is around the whole operational setup. And it goes back to something that you said, Chuck, about setting up the marketing. So there's certainly the marketing that actually operationally works for the franchisee, but taking a step back for the franchisor. I know, like in my case, when I was building a franchise, the sales and marketing operating manual was inches deep, of blood, sweat, and tears that we worked out in terms of how to go through this in like minutia detail in terms of how to kind of sell the product and how to operate the product and et cetera. So isn't operating manual a key part of it? And I presume because of what you guys do, you must be working with franchisors very often in building the marketing into the system that then the franchisee inherits.
Yeah, absolutely. That whole operating manual, the whole FDD and so forth that outlines out the details of what the franchisee should expect and so forth is very interesting. There's been numerous cases where, we ask questions to franchisors and fran dev people within the brand of, how do you guys set your marketing budget? And a common response to that is, oh, well, we just say like 1% or 2% of their revenue. But other than that, there's not much more details from it. So a key to it is like when we're helping out franchisors with overall brand development, whether it's an international basis or for the U.S. side, we give them a really good idea of what that cost structure looks like, and then how to amplify their brand marketing efforts through the addition of the franchisees. Sometimes it's almost like we come across situations where franchisees are almost on their own little island. Like the franchisor says, look, this is a decision you make. Here are some vendors that we trust, and go. But the franchisees, at the end of the day, they're not marketing experts for the most part. Like they don't understand what to do. They just know they need A, B, and C. And that's really not how a brand should be operated from a marketing perspective. It's really a conjoined effort between the franchisor and franchisees. Because when you really utilize one domain and you're amplifying the efforts from an SEO perspective and driving the strength of your domain up from the overall brand level down to the location microsites of the franchisees, you're going to amplify your efforts without having to double or triple your costs, and you're making that more affordable to the franchisees and more efficient for the franchisees.
Got it. Andrew, in your case, you've undoubtedly built that or helped build that operational manual. That's a key part of success, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. And we definitely included a marketing part in our operations manual. And it's quite comprehensive, and we have our marketing director and marketing coordinator that support our franchisees to do the step-by-step, activities in terms of marketing. But on the other hand, we are working on a low profile in marketing. I mean, it's more about the word of mouth effect which we are using.
Okay.
That's our like why we have to do that. But yeah, but we definitely do have that, and it's really important to help them get up and run.
Okay, we've only got about a minute left, so if I could just get maybe 30 seconds from Maimun and Luis on this topic as well. I mean, both of you have seen this on the operational side and how important it is. And my own memory back in the days was that almost none of the franchises that we were competing against had a clue on the operational side. It was a document that didn't really work. And wasn't really trained properly because there's the whole training aspect. So Maimun, what's your perspective on that? And when you get involved with a franchise, you need to look at that, right? There's a lot of work involved with putting it together and training, isn't there?
Yeah, of course. I think when we talk about the training manual, you also have to talk about, are people going to read it, right? You gotta get the people hands-on. I've always believed that if it's an international franchise, at least some of the upper management do need to come. They need to experience the brand. They need to work with us, spend some time with us. And I think that should be a core component of any international franchise. Because unless they truly believe and feel what the brand represents, they won't be able to execute it on the ground. So yeah.
That makes sense. Luis, have you flipped burgers at Cali Burger?
Absolutely.
There you go. So the perfect example. Tough executive gets involved. You know how it works from the inside out.
Absolutely. Maimun hit it right on the head. I mean, before, when we were doing our due diligence period, we brought the team from Mexico to experience the brand, to work in the kitchen, to work alongside people that knew, and also experience, you know, from a customer perspective as well. So that was very important for us. Now we have our own training team in Mexico. So where sub franchisees, we'll still invite them to visit stores in the US that aren't ours. But we also train them alongside, you know, proven successful stores. So yeah, that's 100% valuable to do.
Really appreciate all of your time, all the attendees from around the world. We didn't get to all your questions, but send them in if you have additional ones to info@globalchamber.org. You'll see a blog post on this soon, and more than likely a recording of this program as well. We can't possibly talk about this topic in the short amount of time that we did, but at least we did. We started the conversation, so let's keep it going. Watch for the blog and the recording, and then reach out. Find the folks in this call. They're all members in the directory, and if you have any trouble, send us an email and we'll connect you. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. Catch our next Globinar next week on trade agreements around the world. Again, all the things that are going on in the US, we get enamored by USMCA and how it's transitioned from US or from the NAFTA agreement. But around the world, there's a lot of trade agreements. There's a lot going on, and we're going to be updating that from around the world. So join us next week from Thunderbird School of Global Management, Luis's alma mater. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Cheers.